Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Padavajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Padavajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So we're going to be on page 112 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 10th day of October 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Dasa Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text number 45 on page 112. Trai Gunya Vishaya Veda Nisrai Gunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandho Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Chema Atmavan Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Chema Atmavan Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. You don't need a book? Go ahead. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandvo Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Babu? I'm sorry, you kind of knew. It's okay, you don't have to do it.
Traigunya
Vishaya
Veda.
Traigunya Vishaya Veda. No, he's leading. I was just prompting. Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana
Nirvandvo Nitya
Sattvasto Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto
Niryoga
Chema Atmavan Niryoga Chema Atmavan Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Chema Atmavan. Anyone online?
Traiguna Vishaya Veda
Traigunya Vishaya Veda
Nistraguna Bhavarjana
Nistraigunyo Bhavarjana
Nirvandvo Nitya Sattvasto
Niryandvo Nitya Sattvasto
Niryoga Chema Atmavan.
Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Okay. Traigunya pertaining to the three modes of material nature. Vishayaha on the subject matter. Vedaha, Vedic literatures. Nistrai Gunyaha, transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Bhava, be, Arjuna, O Arjun. Nirdvandvaha, without duality. Nitya Sattvastaha, in a pure state of spiritual existence. Niryoga Kshemaha, free from ideas of gain and protection. Atmavan, established in the self. Okay. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Purport. All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results, which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where, in the beginning, there is Brahma Jigyasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. And now, Antonella, I have a request. Can you go in the back there? There's a door that swings and can stay open. Make sure that door is closed. And if possible, close the kitchen door, because they're making the pots, they're cleaning the pots. It's getting a little noisy. Hare Krishna. So, these three modes of material nature. Some of you are new, and these terms are a little unfamiliar. So I'm going to just review a little basic philosophy here. Krishna is, this, as mentioned in the title, this chapter is kind of a little summary of the subjects of the Gita. There's a lot of review, and he's introducing basic principles that he'll expand on later. So he begins, because the whole context is that this Bhagavad Gita, there's 18 chapters, 700 verses, is 18 chapters of a very much longer work, which is mentioned at the end of this purport, called the Mahabharata. It's a history of India. And the main plot there is this big battle that's going to take place, good versus evil, you know. Now Krishna's devotees, these are called the five Pandavas, they're leading one army. And the other side is trying to usurp the kingdom, and they are practicing adharma, or irreligion, let's put it that way. So it's a long story, which I won't get into, but Krishna has taken the role. Arjuna is the protagonist of one side. He's the main fighter. He's the main skilled warrior, Kshatriya they're called. And he has Krishna on his chariot. Now it's remarkable because Krishna is God. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he's agreed to be the servant of his devotee, of taking the role of a chariot driver, which is a subordinate position. But Arjuna, when he sees on the other side, it's what we call a fratricidal war. On the other side of Arjuna sees his friends, he sees his beloved guru, Dronacharya, who taught him what he knows about fighting, and Bhishma Dev, who took the role of his grandfather when they were orphaned at an early age, he and his four brothers. And he sees all kinds of other relatives and friends. And so he suddenly gets, what we would say, gets cold feet. He doesn't want to fight. Because he says, oh, what's the use of fighting and winning this kingdom when if I win, then the spoils, the kingdom will be soaked with the blood of the people I love, and it'll just be a terrific trauma for me. So he said, I'll just go off to the forest and beg, you know. But he's not suited for that. So he's in a very confused condition. So finally, because he's Krishna's lifelong friend, but he wants to change that relationship. And he says, now I don't want to approach you as a friend. I surrender to you as a guru, as a spiritual master. Now enlighten me about what is dharma. Dharma is an English word by now. Religion, the right thing to do. I'm confused. And so then Krishna changes his attitude and starts speaking to Arjuna as an authority. And first thing he does is says, you're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. And what is that he's lamenting? For the physical bodies of his friends and relatives. Now that's a given. We identify with that. This is me. This is who I am. I'm so old. I have this gender. I have this color. I have this family, all these things. But this just pertains to the body. And Krishna says, no, you're not the body. The body is just a covering on you with the soul, the spirit, the consciousness, the conscious entity called the Atma within. And this is the basic lesson of spiritual life in general, and Krishna consciousness in particular, is to separate the conscious soul from the body. And the soul, who we are, have been entrapped in this is, the Buddhists were preaching this in America before Krishna consciousness came, this wheel of samsara. Birth, old age, disease, and death. Birth and death, so that implies if it's a wheel, it goes on. It means that when the body dies, we don't die. We get another body. So along with this sense of eternal soul and a temporary body comes the idea of karma and reincarnation, which is basic to the whole philosophy. Karma. As we act in this life, we are making our destiny for our next life. For later in this life and or for our next life. In this life, we understand. We were raised by our parents. They say, yes, you have to study, you'll get a good job. Your future, if you don't study and drop out of school, it'll be very bad. So what we do now is going to affect our future. That's obvious, right? But not just the future in this life, in the next life also. And so that idea of karma and reincarnation and the eternality of the soul is basic to this chapter. And then Krishna introduces this idea that because he's speaking as the authority of all the Vedic literature, the Vedas, which include the Mahabharata, which this is 18 chapters, which is a history, and also what was known as the Upanishads, you may have heard of, and Puranas, which are ancient histories. We have one of those Puranas called the Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a basic one of our texts. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and other texts. And we study that every morning. If you're interested, you can come a little early at 7:50, and we have a class every day in that book. And it's kind of postgraduate to the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is basic, and the Bhagavatam is like more details. So what this verse is all about is that Krishna is talking about, it goes back to, say, text 40, where he's saying that in this path, Nehabhakramanasosri, of Krishna consciousness, of bhakti yoga, there's no loss or diminution. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most fearful type of danger. So, if you just step back a minute and you accept the eternality of the soul, that we were never born and we never die. We, the soul. The body certainly is born and grows old and then dies. But we don't die and we're not born. So here it says there's no loss or diminution. In other words, you may make a little advancement because it's a path, just like you want to get a degree in college. Or I want to be a doctor. Well, you got to go through 4 years, then there's postgraduate, and there's so many things. Then you can get your MD and you can practice, right? So there's a path for anything you want to do in this world. You want to become a great athlete, a musician, whatever it may be. So similarly, there is a path in devotional service, or what we call bhakti yoga. It's called bhakti marga. Marga means a path in Sanskrit. So the path means that you develop skills, you get trained, you learn so many things, right? And but the wonderful thing about this path is that it's a spiritual path, meaning whatever you achieve in this one lifetime, it may be a little bit, it may be something substantial, you'll take it to the next lifetime. Whereas anything material is lost because it's adhering to the body. The body is going to be lost. So whatever you got in your bank account, whatever honors you have, whatever, family, property, it's all left behind. Everyone knows that. You can't take it with you, right? But you can take it with you with the spiritual assets, which are really the valuable things. Because as you progress in devotional service, now Krishna is stressing in the verse we read today, the trigunyas, or the three modes, and I'll get into those in a minute. But the idea is that this whole life that we construct, and each time we take birth, in our next birth, now that you've come to Bhagavad Gita class, even if this is your first class, you're sure to be a human being in your next life. This is also being seen by God. He's in the heart. Oh, okay, they took one step to me, as opposed to like millions and millions of people in this city who would never dream of coming to the Bhagavad Gita class. You know? So, what to speak of the world. So you're very fortunate. You have made a little advancement on this path. So that's never lost. That means, well, how could it not be lost? Okay, well, they got to take birth as a human being, and then somehow come in touch with Krishna consciousness again, and then come to the second class. But why postpone it? In other words, why not try to complete the course in this one lifetime? So I'm just going to explain some of the concepts in this verse, and so just to get the context. So he says in text 40, you all have books if you want, to page 107. In this endeavor, Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect him from the most, and that's a little mistake there, the fearful type of danger. And the greatest danger we have in this world is not dying, we're all going to die, but to lose the human form of life. To act in such a way that you get thrown down into another species of life. And that is formed by your attachments, by your absorption in this life. Every morning, almost every morning, I take a walk. I take a morning walk. I'm chanting Hare Krishna, walking up this Cass Avenue here. And it's 6:30 in the morning, and there's always a few people walking their dogs. Dogs have their own schedule. They get up for Mangalartik. Anyway. So they have their, they're out there with the dogs. And it's sure, I mean, why do you have a dog? Because it's, you have an affection for the dog. And you can see that in some of the dogs, anyway, you can see the relationship with the people. So that's, it's heartwarming in one sense, but it's also a little tragic. Because if you get too attracted to the dog, you can easily become a dog in your next life. That's whatever the main thought in your life, when you leave this body, that's a critical thing. And those thoughts are built up throughout your whole life, what you're going to think of. That determines your next life. That principle will be explained in detail in the 8th chapter. So, the whole idea is, the consciousness is everything. So we're trying to develop a consciousness where we're thinking of Krishna at every moment. Where we're thinking of God at every moment. And Krishna helps us. Okay, that's kind of difficult to remember God, but you're always experiencing some light, or drinking some water, or some fragrances as you walk around, right? There's all these experiences. So Krishna says, I am that light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability in man. I am the fragrance of the earth, of anything. So the point is that these experiences that we have every day, we don't connect it to the divine because we're covered, but they're all there because Krishna has arranged it that way. So just your ordinary life can remind you of Krishna. It's the first step, And then we have the deities. If you stay for arti at 8:15, we have these beautiful deity forms that have been carved according to the Shastra, and they can help us to remember Krishna's form. We have especially Srimad Bhagavatam, accounts of what Krishna did when he came to the earth 5,000 years ago. All these wonderful relations he had with his devotees, great adventures, all attractive. So in this way, the process of Krishna consciousness can help us to remember Krishna more and more in our daily life. And in doing that, you feel like a weight of the anxiety is leaving you. It's because Krishna is within the heart, and he's giving us freedom from so much fears and anxieties about everything, because you're on the safe side. You're now getting closer to Krishna, which is our natural state. Forgetting God is an unnatural position for human beings. People don't know that. But remembering Him at every step and feeling one's relation with Him, affection and dependence, that's our natural state. So here he's saying, the Vedas, now the Vedas are very vast, and part of the Vedas deal with material process of sacrifice and austerity so that you can improve your material condition, either on this planet or go to heavenly planets. There are higher planets where heaven is not a myth, where you can live a long time. The living conditions are much nicer, and you don't get old, but you're not eternal. But it's not. So that is possible to go there by the Vedas following the Vedas that deal with that. And these are, he said, Trigunya Vishaya Veda. These Vedas are dealing with the 3 modes of nature. Now we know about the 3 modes. We may not call them that, but everyone knows. You may see someone who's driven to make a lot of money, right? The ones that come to mind in the modern era, get into MIT or one of these high class colleges, and your whole idea is somehow I'm going to get into Wall Street, and I'll be a quant. You ever hear of a quant? A quant is like someone who can manipulate or figure out the stock market and equations and make money and make millions of dollars. I want to be a millionaire before I'm 21. And on my way to $1 billion. Why not? So that's called the mode of passion. There's so many things I can buy and enjoy if I just get ahead like that. That's the mode of passion. It's a great desire for a sense gratification, we call. The mode of goodness is more thoughtful. You have you want to know what's the meaning of life. You may read philosophical books. You don't like the hurly-burly of the city and all of this thing. You like to go out into the country and walk in the forest and contemplate. This is a mode of goodness. Mode of ignorance. Oh, let me just sleep. Let me sleep in. The best day of the week is Sunday. I could sleep till 12 o'clock. Oh God! I remember when I was in high school. It was like oh wow. I'd have to get up at 7 to go to school, high school. And then on Sunday, I can sleep until 11. My mother won't bother me, like that. Oh, that's good. So this idea of sleep and laziness, intoxication, uncleanliness, that's the mode of ignorance. Fast, really wanting to get ahead materially, that's a mode of passion. And mode of goodness means you're more reflective and philosophical. What's the meaning? Let me inquire. That's the mode we want to try to cultivate first, because you're more receptive to this kind of philosophy and understanding. So here Krishna said, but the mode of goodness I like to be on is not good enough. We want to get to the mode of pure goodness, where there's no, we understand the danger of becoming attached to anything in this world, even things that are in the mode of goodness. We want to become attached and involved and conscious of Krishna, which is called pure goodness, beyond the mode of good. Because all these modes are mixed with the other modes. You may be in the mode of goodness one day, but in the next mode you're more or less in the mode of passion. And even from hour to hour, or moment to moment, it can change. So we want to get fixed in the mode of goodness. So here he's saying, try Gunya Vishaya, that these Vedas I described, O Arjuna, the subject matter is the three modes of nature. Be transcendental to them. Nistra Gunyo Bhavardhana. Nirdvandva Nityasattvasto. Become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from the dualities. Good and bad, heat and cold, fame and infamy, all these things. And be situated, fixed in the mode of goodness. Nir Yoga Kshema. Now this idea of yoga and Kshema, we don't know the Sanskrit, but we're very familiar with the concept. Yoga in this context means the things that you need to live. The food, the shelter, things like that. That's your yoga. The Kshema is your security. You may have all these things, but there's an army coming over the hill that's invading, or there's a tsunami that's predicted. And then what's the use of having all those things? Your security isn't there. So both of those are necessary for a peaceful life, as peaceful as possible in the material. So here it says, don't worry about it. Near yoga kshema atmavan. I'll provide everything. You just take this transcendental. So he's inviting Arjuna to focus on the eternal, beyond these three Vedas, beyond the material, and that's the idea. All right, I'm going to continue. Text 46. Yavan arta udapane sarvatak samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. All purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. And the purpose behind them, the ultimate purpose is, as Mahabharata mentioned, this little phrase from the Vedanta Sutra, the first sutra. Sutras are little aphorisms. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now then, having come to the human form of life, you should inquire into the absolute truth, which is defined in the next sutra as Janmadya Sajitaha. Where does everything come from? How does everything, what's the source of everything? In other words, you should inquire into God having come to the human form of life. The other forms of life, they can't think about it. But we should use our God-given intelligence, which is a special gift of the human form of life, to find out the absolute truth, where everything comes from, and try to fix our attention on that, on that ultimately the personality of God. So that's what he's saying. The rituals and sacrifices mentioned in the Karma Kanda division of the Veda literature are meant to encourage gradual development of self-realization. So Karma Kanda, you go to heaven, and eventually you get, that doesn't work, so then you go to self-realization. And the purpose of self-realization is clearly stated in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The purpose of studying the Vedas is to know Lord Krishna, the primeval cause of everything. So self-realization means understanding Krishna and one's eternal relationship with him. The relationship of the living entities with Krishna is also mentioned in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita 15:7. The relationship is also mentioned in 15:7. The living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna. Therefore, revival of Krishna consciousness by the individual living entity is the highest perfectional stage of Vedic knowledge. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.33.7 as follows. Okay, this is about chanting the holy name. Aho bata swapachoto gariyan yajjigmagre vartate namatubhyam te pustapaste juhuvus sasnaraya brahmanuchu namagunanti yete. O my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of... Now this is Devahuti speaking to her son, Kapila Dev, who's an incarnation of Krishna. So that's why she's addressing him as the Lord. Oh my Lord, a person who is chanting your holy name, although born of a low family like that of a Chandala or dog eater, is situated on the highest platform of self-realization. Such a person must have performed all kinds of penances and sacrifices according to Vedic rituals, and studied the Vedic literature many, many times after taking his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. So this verse is kind of revolutionary when we all encountered it when we read this in the Bible. Because what it's speaking about is, it's not in this translation that he gives, Yajjigve Vartate Namatubhyam. If somehow or other the holy name is being vibrated on the tongue of somebody, they may look like an ordinary person, but you should know, oh, that person in previous life has studied the Vedas. In other words, here's a bunch, you look at how this movement started in 1966. A bunch of hippies came, and would think, oh, this will be far out. Somebody's teaching the Bhagavad Gita. Here's a guru just came to, They didn't know anything, but they had heard a little bit about this and that. So then they started chanting Hare Krishna. They started chanting the holy name, which is they're saying, oh, these hippies are not hippies in previous life or lives. They studied the Vedas, they performed the sacrifice, so many different things. So the idea is that it's not ordinary to just be interested in this. We go out with these books, and and some of you may have learned about it on, gotten a book on the street, or you saw an ad. Somehow or other you came in touch with this. So the fact that you show some interest means there was something in the previous life. And when we chant our little kirtan at the end here, if you chant along, then you'll be fitting into this verse. How wonderful it is. You must have performed all kinds of penances, sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals, studied the Vedic literatures many, many times after taking your bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. Such a person is considered to be the best of the Aryan family. Just if you chant Hare Krishna. He's not giving any. Anyway, it's an amazing verse. So one must be intelligent enough to understand the purpose of the Vedas without being attached to the rituals only, and must not desire to be elevated to the heavenly kingdoms for a better quality of sense gratification. It is not possible for the common man in this age to follow all the rules and regulations of the Vedic rituals, nor is it possible to study all of the Vedanta and the Upanishads thoroughly. It requires much time, energy, knowledge, and resources to execute the purposes of the Vedas. This is hardly possible in this age. The best purpose of Vedic culture is served, however, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, the deliverer of all fallen souls. When Lord Chaitanya was asked by a great Vedic scholar, Prakashananda Saraswati, why he, the Lord, was chanting the holy name of the Lord like a sentimentalist instead of studying the Vedanta philosophy, the Lord replied that his spiritual master had found him to be a great fool and thus asked him to chant the holy name of the Lord Krishna. He did so and became ecstatic like a madman. In this age of Kali, most of the population is foolish and not adequately educated to understand Vedanta philosophy. The best purpose of Vedanta philosophy is served by inoffensively chanting the holy name of the Lord. Vedanta is the last word in Vedic wisdom, and the author and knower of the Vedanta philosophy is Lord Krishna. And the highest Vedantist is the great soul who takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord. That is the ultimate purpose of all Vedic mysticism. So that's kind of shocking, you know. In other words, what is saying that we don't have to do that. We can't do it. We're not going to go there and study Sanskrit and go through all the Vedas, you know. And it's like, well, then what can I do? You don't have to. In this age, it's been made easy. Because what is the final goal of this whole thing, of all the Vedic, is to get the primary, you know, the preliminary goal, not the final, but the preliminary goal is to get liberation. This idea of understanding, okay, I'm eternal. I've lived so many lives before, and if I'm not careful, I'll live many lives again, trapped in the material energy, to suffer birth, old age, disease, and death. Now, I'm old, but luckily, you know, because of my genes or karma, or, you know, the smoothies I'm eating, I'm not suffering so much right now. I'll be 76 in December, you know. But you can ask them. I'm always here in the Mangalartik. I'm coming, you know. So, but I know it's coming, you know. I mean, it's inevitable. You know, so many of my god brothers and god sisters have passed, or they're not in that great shape. Some are, you know. But the point is, we're all going to face it. Let's face it. We're all going to face it. So, what to do between now and then, that we can ensure our best next birth? That's just the logic. If you have to be convinced. You have to understand. This is basic philosophy. This is text 20. It's like the heart of the section on the soul. So it's very simple. It's actually an Upanishadic verse. For the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. Bhagavad. It has not come into being, is not coming, will not come into being. It's not like souls are being generated somewhere all the time. We are as eternal as Krishna is. Actually, the same adjectives are used. Aja, Nitya, Shashvato, Yam Purana. Unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. The soul does not die when the body dies. In a sense, we're all slain, either by our infirmity or some external thing, you know. The body becomes dysfunctional. It's as simple as that. But it's an amazing machine when you think about it, but eventually it breaks down. Okay, but not to panic, you know. You don't die. You're going to die. If you're Krishna conscious, or even, you know, somewhat Krishna conscious, then your next birth will be auspicious, meaning you'll be born in a family. Like we have a family here. I don't know if they're about to leave and move away. We have several really, you know, families with little children. But one of them is Purushottam and his wife, Priya, I think her name is? Yeah. And the little Gaurangi. That's ideal from birth. Because remember, the science is the most prominent thought that's in your mind when you leave this body, that's going to determine your next life. So here she's thinking of Krishna, she's becoming attracted to the deities, they're teaching her songs, she's eating pure food and atmosphere. Very fortunate birth. That means in the last birth, she made some good advancement. So the idea is that it's a continuum. Don't just identify with this one body or this situation. Things look hopeless for this world. There's heavy wars going on everywhere, climate is changing and being wrecked, you know. So therefore, that's more urgent. We should become as Krishna conscious as quickly as possible. And it's easy. It's so easy. There's the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this is not something made up by Lord Chaitanya. He quotes the Kalisantarana Upanishad, in which there's this phrase. The first verse says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare. Then he says, Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmashanashanam, Natak Parataropaya, Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. He says, you may search through all the Vedas, sarvavesheta drishyate. You will not find a better means to counteract the evils of this age of Kali than chanting these 16 names, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. So it's right there in the Upanishads. Lord Chaitanya didn't make it up. And the thing is, it's tried and true. So many devotees have come before us, they've chanted this, and they become detached from this world, attached to Krishna, and tapped into the reservoir of pleasure that we're all carrying in our hearts. This is the wonderful thing. We don't need to try to find a pleasure in the senses. That's described in this previous verse, Bhogaishwarya prasaktanam taya paritāchetasam, that it requires determination because we're so conditioned to looking out, or what tastes nicely, what feels nice, like that. But that's all a distraction. Those things keep us tied to this world of suffering. But by chanting Hare Krishna, because Krishna is there in his name, the word Krishna means to attract by beauty and by all personal, it's Krishna himself there. And Rama means ultimate spiritual bliss. So if you become adept at chanting this mantra and you discipline in your life, then it becomes more and more pleasurable. And what's the cost? Zero. You don't have to pay anything, but except your faith. That's the price of it. But you can have that source of enjoyment with you at every moment. In your serving Krishna, thinking of Krishna, and relating to Krishna, and glorifying. And so I wanted to leave a little time for like a poem or two, because I've written some poems. And you can see some of the most, these delightful vibrations, they embody aspects of the Supreme, and you can stay enlivened that way. And it's not dependent on anything else. You've already got everything with you. Your tongue, your voice, your brain, your ear, and your heart. And and we saw it with Srila Prabhupada. Even in his advanced age, with weakening health, he was steady, he was blissful, he was, traveling around the world at age 80, enlivening his devotees, and it was real. This real spiritual energy. It's not a myth. All right. So where are we here? 47, right? Okay. Karmanevadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palahetubhu ma te sangostva karmani. You have a right to perform the prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Purport. There are three considerations here: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. Prescribed duties are activities enjoined in terms of one's acquired modes of material nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority, and inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. The Lord advised that Arjuna not be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. One who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. Thus he is the enjoyer or sufferer of the result of such actions. As far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into three subdivisions, namely routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. Routine work performed as an obligation in terms of the scriptural injunctions, without desire for results, is action in the mode of goodness. Work without results becomes the cause of work with results becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. Arjuna was therefore advised by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty without attachment to the result. His non-participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. Inaction is sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. So this is, take a while to describe this and what's going on here. But it's Arjuna occupied or belonged to a certain class, if you will, or someone who has a certain facility. He was a born fighter. He was trained in that, and he was really suited and very expert in it. And his mission was to win the kingdom for virtue, if you will. So that real Dharma would be instituted as the king, his brother Yudhishthira, who was Dharma personified, So that was the mission. That was Krishna's mission also. He explains in chapter 4 that I come to this world whenever there are discrepancies in Dharma, and I protect the devotees and I encourage them, I annihilate the miscreants, and I further the reestablishment of Dharma. Now why should Krishna care? Because he's our father. He says all of these living entities are my children. And so many of them, in the conditioned state, they've forgotten me and they're wandering around suffering in the material world. So he's concerned, and the way out of that is by really understanding and practicing actual Dharma. And real Dharma, and we'll get into too much detail here, is that which brings us to more and more in line with our actual nature, with our actual thing. Everything has a Dharma. I like to point out the seat. We just got these new chairs, so they're really following their Dharma, which is to be nice chairs, and you can sit there and. So the chair has a Dharma. If you sit down on the chair and it collapses, it's a chair name only. It's not following its Dharma. So everything has a Dharma. And we also have a Dharma. And our Dharma is to serve. Right now, we're serving the demands of our mind and body and, maybe our boss and things like that. We're serving, right? We think we're independent, but you're actually serving these orders. So that service is our Dharma, but it's now, it's become adharmic because it's not serving the ultimate master. The ultimate master is Krishna. He's known as Rishikesh, the master of the senses. Now, here's the wonderful transcendental point. Krishna is always blissful. Why not? If you were God, would you have periods when, because you're in control, you could have whatever you want. Okay, I have to have a period now where I'm miserable and depressed. No, he would be blissful all the time. And he is, But he's troubled in one sense because so many of his children have wandered away from the path of bliss and happiness forever, and were embodied in this role of birth and death, old age and disease, trying to enjoy separately from him. But you can't, because ultimately the means of enjoyment, they turned into means of suffering. I used to work in a hospital. I saw it all the time. Old people, they come in, they have diseases, chronic diseases. And the very senses that used to be, given pleasure, the body itself, there's this pain here, misery here, like that. And then there's also the emotional pain, everything, you love this person, they die, or whatever happens, It's just the nature of material life. So we're not meant for that. We're meant for the spiritual world, where God is in charge and everything it's the land of love, and Krishna is blissful, engaging in all kinds of loving exchanges with his eternal friends and family there. He's transcendental, and we have a place there, and it doesn't come to an end, and it's ever new, ever fresh. You can read about Krishna in the Krishna book in the Bhagavad Purana 10th canto. So we've wandered from there because we wanted to be independent, but we're not. We can't. And so it's Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness is bringing us back to our actual reality. And here's the science of it. Krishna is Anandamaya Vyasat. This is from the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra means the essence of all the knowledge in the Vedas is in this Vedanta Sutra, aphoristic. And what this means is Anandamaya Abhyasa, that Krishna is always full of bliss, and we can see it from his abhyasa, from his pastimes, that everything is blissful. So we're part of that. We're meant to be part of that bliss. So if we can take our pleasure in Krishna's pleasure, you see, just like a mother takes a pleasure in the little child's pleasure, isn't it? The child is warm enough and happy, and he's not sick, and well fed, and he gives a little smile, toothless smile, The mother is fulfilled. She doesn't want anything else from the child. She doesn't say, "Well, I'll give you some milk if you do this and this and this." No, there's nothing like that. It's pure love. Love means you take very great pleasure in the safety and the pleasure and the comfort of the beloved. That's where your pleasure is, and that's where the real source of bliss is. Because then we hook up to Krishna's pleasure, and he's Anandamaya Vyasat. He's always blissful. So therefore, we can always be blissful in that way, and we see it from the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and the pastimes of Krishna. It's possible to be like that. You're not dependent on anyone, anything else. You know, you can always chant Hare Krishna, you can always find some service. And Prabhupada worked so hard, it was empowered to set up these temples and these centers and write the books that teaches the philosophy and shows us how and the goal, the means and the goal, and set up these temples that are places where we can come together, chant together, have the deity darshan serve, and take prasadam, and cultivate Krishna consciousness. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita is giving us step by step. And you know, the idea is that, okay, we can work, but the work should be done as a service for God. And that should be our goal. And whatever fruit comes it, okay, we use it for, as far as possible, for serving Krishna. Just like we have devotees living here, some of them clean here, some of them clean, and they learn how to cook, you know, and the prasadam, and we have festivals. And all of that is for the pleasure of Krishna and all of the devotees, you know, and you get very blissful just doing that. You know, I'm going to go to Rath Yatra. What am I going to get? I'm going to go to Rath Yatra. What's in it for me? Just chant and dance before Lord Jagannath. You know, that's what's in it for you. And if you actually do it, you have a blissful time. You know, and you didn't get anything, you know, but you gave everything, and because Krishna's in your heart, He saw that and He fulfilled you. That's the science, and it works. All right, so I'm going to end with a poem or two. This is from the... Okay, the first, this is the Shikshastika. Lord Chaitanya wrote eight verses. This is Krishna himself, and he's mentioned here. We'll get into that. On the holy name, teaching us the value of chanting this holy name. This is the science. So, Checheto Darpanamarjanam Baba Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kaira Bachandrika Patadanam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapadam Padam Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon and knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. The whole movement is in that one verse. Everything is based on it. But then how to get it, how to chant purely. So this, the third verse is also very important. You know, second verse, Lord Chaitanya, we only have limited time. So he says, Trinada bisuni chena, tadorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. To think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant His name incessantly until the final hour. The final hour is when we want to be sure to be chanting. So there's so much instruction in there, and please read Srila Prabhupada's books. Come to class. If you can't come to class, they're online. And just learn about Krishna consciousness. And definitely take prasadam. That is kind of a given. So, thank you. We'll adjourn now and get ready for a little kirtan. And you're all invited tomorrow as well, our Wednesday class. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.